This is the Friday Night Fever Afterburn, sponsored by Peden Heating and Air Conditioning.
Welcome to Friday Night Fever Afterburn. Week 3 of the season is in the books. Kayleigh's tuning in live. I can hear it over there.
Turning it down.
On the delay. Week 3 of the season is in the books. We had a lot of good matchups, a lot of high scoring, a lot of surprising matchups, and a lot of great scores and wins for certain teams, not so great for others. We're going to get right into it. Kaleigh, tell us about those first 4 matchups.
Well, game of the week this week, it was an exciting one for the visiting Bulldogs. 42-18 was the final score from that one. Another big high-scoring game, one-sided game. MOSLEY 68-0 over Arnold. And then a close one over in Bonifay tonight. Holmes County gets the home victory 46-36 over Chipley. And then another close battle, South Walton and Port St. Joe. South Walton gets the road win 47-37.
We got Freeport on the road at Liberty County. Liberty County's going to win that close one between the two Bulldogs, 20-17. Destin and North Bay Haven, that one being played at North Bay Haven Charter Academy on their home field. North Bay Haven can't get the job done. It is 33-19 in the Sharks' favor. Bozeman playing their third home game on their home field this season. They're now 3-0, and they win this one 33-7. Bay High goes on the road to Gadsden County. They lose 52-15.
And then we have Cottondale. They put up a big score. We obviously missed them last week, so they had a good little debut back. 56-12 is that one. Franklin on the road. They lost 41-18. Rutherford also with a road loss, 47-12 to Fort Walton Beach. That's the final. And then an exciting one over in Defuniak. Walton gets away 31-28 in double overtime.
Yeah, double overtime. That's a Class 1R school. We did have one more. Sneeds, they beat Graceville 32-6. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you on getting us that last one in there. Sneeds beat Graceville 32-6. But yes, that double overtime win against a very, very talented Class 1R team in Union County. Double overtime. So that clearly, if you just look at it from an outer perspective, was probably the game of the week. Of course, Union County is not one of our teams, so that one was a little harder to get to up in Defuniak Springs. But yes, we got a lot of games to talk about, a lot of surprising scores, a lot of not so surprising scores. We're going to dive right into it, starting up in BLOUNTSTOWN with that game of the week as voted by the fans. Don't start with me. It was voted by the fans. You guys asked for it. You got it. Marianna at BLOUNTSTOWN, 42-18. Take it away, Kaleigh.
I can't describe how excited I am about Marianna. I talked to Coach Glover earlier in the week, kind of just talking about where his team has taken themselves this season and comparing it to, seasons past. So I'm very excited about them. I think this kind of solidified it. I've only seen the highlights from the last couple of weeks, so being able to see them in person, I know someone that we were all very excited to see kind of go off right there. Amari Clemens leading the state in scores. He added 5 more tonight. He's at
5. 4 rushing and 1 an 80-plus yard kick return for a touchdown.
So when I was there, he scored 3. It was 21-6. He scored all 3 touchdowns for them. I mean, another one. I mean, this is the kickoff return. Just threw up the field. I have and he's a sophomore. So it was really exciting to see that. It is also on the other side of it, just kind of heartbreaking to see BLOUNTSTOWN. There was a lot of expectations and hype and I mean, we still have, obviously, great plays. This one from Jordan Pride, the interception, seeing him get back into the game. And then on this one, you also see USF's Ashton Mosley kind of get into the mix, too. And they had good plays here and there, a lot of drop passes. The run game would be kind of swallowed up by the defense. We saw that by the Marianna defense. We saw that in one of the first plays of the game. Marion Hover got the handoff, and that Marianna line just gobbled him up. So it's hard to see a team that there were a lot of high expectations for this season, and to just see, already 1-2. They have played up in each of their last 3 games with Walton, Rutherford, and now Marianna. But I'm very excited about this Marianna team. I mean, what they're doing this season, the players they have on this team going from 1-9 last season to 3-0 this season. I know a lot of haters on Facebook this week were commenting that they were only playing 1R schools. They're playing down, but you see a score like this, you see what they've, grown over the last couple of weeks. They had a rough one with Sneads in the preseason classic, but then, they beat Holmes County, allowed 14 points in that one, a shutout last week, and then 42-18 this week. So
yeah, and you've said it, this whole time. Amari Clemens, he is incredible. He is one.
Yeah.
We obviously knew there was several guys at BLOUNTSTOWN that, it's like, all right, watch out for them. They're Division I talents. You got, of course, Jason Patterson at Sneads, the Cincinnati commit, who obviously we're going to have to pay attention to him all year long.
Yeah.
But now that's 2 running backs in Jackson County, one at Marianna, one at Sneads, that both have a genuine shot at going for not only the rushing but the scoring title in all of the state this year. Jason Patterson not getting to play last week in week 2. That game was rained out.
Yeah.
So Amari Clemens obviously has
a
head start on him. And then Graceville tonight, I'm sure they probably rested a lot of players in that one. I haven't got to look at the box score there, but just looking at the final score, I assume they rested some players because Sneads is a very talented senior-heavy team. But Amari Clemens, he is incredible. A sophomore, like you mentioned, coming out of the woodworks. He has so far been the most exciting player in the Panhandle Watch.
Yeah.
So far, he has been incredible. We certainly are going to have to talk to him this week because he is probably going to be leading the state in a lot of categories.
And
but
Coach Glover was talking about it. Just he knew he was going to be something special in his freshman season, playing JV. He had a big tackle, picked up the ball, took it to the house in the end zone, and Coach Glover was like, "Yep, that guy is going to be something special." And we saw that tonight. He's one of those players I've talked about. 8 of the 11 starters on the offensive side of the ball, 8 of them played their first game against Sneads in the preseason classic. So this is honestly a young team, and Amari's only a sophomore, so you see it with him too. But I mean, he is electric. He ran that offense for them. RJ Mays also at quarterback doing a great job. He had a big run. I think it was in some of our pad highlights. So there's a lot of excitement around this team, and I am on the train. I am so excited for Marianna. I can't wait to see kind of how this season rolls out for the Bulldogs.
Right, and I'm going to take a look in the comments because I see we got a lot of people chatting down here, a lot of BLOUNTSTOWN fans still hanging around after the loss, so great support by those Tigers. I do see from Coach Nichols, Granville picked the game of the week. We put it up to a Twitter and a Facebook poll. It was very close, very, very close in all the polls, but it did win in Marianna and BLOUNTSTOWN's favor. Very close between Holmes County and Shipley. Also, Port St. Joe and South Walton got a lot of votes, but it did come down to BLOUNTSTOWN Marianna. That's where we showed up tonight. Still a very good game, of course, in Marianna's favor, but definitely some other great games as well, specifically that Holmes County Shipley one and the Port St. Joe South Walton one, but we'll get to those in just a minute. Still going through the highlights. How did the Mosley and Arnold game end? You see the score up there. Not very well if you're Arnold. It was 55-0 at the half. We'll get right into that in a second, but not very good for Arnold. Battle of the Bulldogs, clearly the game of the week. That is talking about the Freeport and Liberty County game. A very close one up there. We had Ethan shooting that game tonight. Very competitive game. He said, when I left, Freeport was winning, and then it ended up being Bulldogs, Liberty County winning on their home field. So a very close one. Certainly a great game. Could have been the game of the week by the highlights that we got. The closest game of the highlights that we got. BLOUNTSTOWN plays Taylor County next week. Another tough matchup. That's right. They have a bye week next week. Then they have Taylor County in 2 weeks. BLOUNTSTOWN, of course, we see all of those BLOUNTSTOWN fans that know their schedule in and out, correcting that there. Coach Olds, good evening to you as well. It's a fun night, and we got a lot of football to talk about. We are just getting started. And, yes, we are dropping BLOUNTSTOWN. Yes, that we did hype them a lot this offseason. We will continue to stick with them. They had a slow start last year. They ended up in the Final Four. But, yes,
they just have some things to work out.
So far, there is a lot to work out. But so far, if there's any team that has kind of not lived up to the expectations, and whether those expectations were put on by us, it has been BLOUNTSTOWN. They have not lived up to the early on expectations. Marianna certainly has. And, of course, Walton in week 1, that was a tough matchup. So strength of schedule certainly is going to bang them up early.
They lost a lot of players. They lost they have a huge senior class this year, but they also lost a lot last year. And so these other players having to fill up. I know we've hyped up those 4 players, but it takes more than 4 players to win football games and to fill a team. So they still have younger players learning, and they're missing a lot of talent that they also had last year. So as exciting as it is for these, to have 4 Division I players, there's other players on their team, and you got to play tough teams. And so there's great potential for Blountstown, but they've definitely hit some woes. I mean, the schedule's hard for them too, so.
Right, and not the only wrong one, because saw our comment hating on Marianna last week, and they certainly are doing great. So we both can be wrong. We'll agree to both be wrong.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into that Mosley and Arnold game. Won't take very long on this one because it was all Mosley from the start. I mean, obviously these two teams quite outmatched this season. Arnold, very young, has injuries. Mosley, very young, but very talented right out of the gate. Mosley just laid it on him. Sammy Freitas, he had all day long to pass. He did whatever he wanted when he was back there to pass.
That's insane.
Mosley's, offensive line, they just sat there and just basically said, yeah, you're not going to get to Sammy, and that's exactly what happened. This next play in particular, watch. I counted to 6 on Friday Night Fever. He just sat there playing backyard football. He's playing backyard football. He's just hanging out back there looking, let me get a guy open. This one was Ethan Kellum. Found him in the end zone, got a score, and then basically was the deal all night, where Mosley's offensive line was holding off Arnold's defensive line. Arnold's offensive line couldn't stop Mosley's defensive line, so it was just the tale of two games. It was just completely just one-sided the whole way. They did whatever they wanted. 55-0 at the half, 68-0 the final score. Really, if they wanted to, they probably could have punched this one to 100.
Yeah.
Good thing they didn't. I'm glad there's such thing as a running clock. Didn't stick around for the second half, but I'm assuming some backups probably got shuffled in. But yes, it will certainly, this is showing, all right, number one in the county so far is Mosley. And the bottom of the county right now is Arnold. That's what it looks like right now as things are shipping up. And this one, this final score clearly indicative of that. I know we don't want to hang around too long on a 68-0 game, but any thoughts before we move on to the next one?
I mean, yeah, Mosley, it's what we expected from Mosley. They look good again. So they look good against the 3 Bay County opponents they've had, and we know that they have a tough schedule ahead. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how, this catapults them into the remainder of their, heavier games towards the end of the season.
Right. And I mean, clearly we'll have to see how Mosley goes against, their district opponents, not just the Bay County teams. But right now they look to be, a contender from what we've seen so far. You can't really base it off the teams that they faced, but we'll have to wait and see. They got Leon coming up soon, so we'll have to check in on that one. But this is the other game. This is the one that came second place for our Game of the Week votes. We had a lot of people last week saying, we want Chipley and Holmes County. We want Chipley and Holmes County. It certainly lived up to the hype because Chipley has won 7 in a row dating back to, my senior year in high school, 2017. So it's been a little while since Holmes County got it. They got it done tonight. And this was an exciting party in Memorial Field in Bonifay. Holmes County getting it going from the just absolute from the kickoff. All Holmes County, I'm losing my train of thought. 24-0. They put in 3 touchdowns and 3 extra points. It was completely one-sided in the first half. Chipley came back, but clearly a battle in this one. What do you think of this matchup?
I mean, we always know this one's going to be a good one. I remember being at this game last year, and it's just an exciting environment between these two teams, a cross-county rivalry, and just both of these passionate fan bases. I mean, both these fan bases are just fun to be around. I love the environment that both of them bring to the game. And then with the football on the field, I mean, Chipley has been a dominant team, 2-0 right before this game, and then over the past couple of seasons. And we know Holmes County is just a gritty team that can really battle it out. And we saw it, and I think it was exciting to see because I think in recent years you just kind of expect Chipley. So it was really cool to see Holmes County really battle and prove it. And they're hungry this year. Like, just being at their games, you can tell how badly they want it. And the excitement around this program is just so exciting to see for them. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Chipley for the rest of the year because we haven't seen them really. We've just seen scores of their first 2 games, not playing any other teams that we cover, so we don't necessarily know what they're matched up against. So, I mean, it was definitely a tough one. No matter what either team looks like, both team will bring their A game to a matchup like this because there's bragging rights. There's a lot on the line more than just a win or a loss on your record for this kind of game.
Right, and I did have a correction to make from what I said on TV. If you were watching on air, we said Tucker Fairclough with a quick touchdown, and then we said Tucker Fairclough with the kick return is actually Jameson Bacon. He was making plays all night.
There's Tucker right there.
Tucker in number 6 and Jameson number 7. Said that wrong on TV, but correcting it now. For the record, for anybody that comes at me later on, I apologize. But yes, this one obviously a huge game for Holmes County. They are going to love this one. Their only loss so far this season, 3-0. Marianna. So right now,
we've talked about this one too. I mean, I was in the car on my way back talking to Courtney, our reporter who went to this one, and then you said the same thing when we were getting ready for the show, how exciting a week 6, week 7 Marianna Holmes County matchup would have been, because, you know, it's the first week of the season when they played, and both teams are still figuring it out, especially in these smaller programs. You don't really get to know what your team is like when you first step on the field. So week 6 or 7 of like a Holmes County Marianna game, I would have loved to see it, but I'm excited to see where both of these programs are headed now.
Right, and it's only going to get harder, you know, down the road for both of these teams. You know, specifically Holmes County next week. That's going to be a huge matchup with Sneads. I believe that is the matchup, and we'll get to that later on. But that is likely our game of the week matchup for next week. Won't rule everything out so far, but that's likely what next week's game of the week will be. We're going to take a look at some of the comments before we get into the next couple of ball games. We had 7 ball games that we went to tonight, so 7 games with highlights. Find me somebody else who does that around here, because let me know when you find that, and I'll get back with you there. But we're going to take a look at the comments. I see Coach T's down in there. I know he's excited. We're about to get to your game shortly, but I'm sure you had an exciting one over in Port St. Joe. I see Don't Count Out BLOUNTSTOWN. They're going to bounce back. A lot of talent. I would have to agree. They had a slow start last year, and they ended up in the Final Four. I saw another comment that said they've yet to play a Class 1R opponent. That is also very, 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 very true.
Yeah.
They've only played teams in higher classifications. Obviously, Rutherford is a team that struggled in recent years, but still a larger school. Walton, a larger school. Marianna, a larger school. They've not played anybody in their own classification so far. So the 1 and 2, it is against higher classified teams. And, you know, we can talk about bandwagons, not bandwagons, anything, you know, hopping on the train. They will be fine. They're going to pick up some wins. They will be in the playoffs. I guarantee BLOUNTSTOWN will be in the playoffs. Basically, everybody makes the playoffs in Class 1R. BLOUNTSTOWN is going to be in the playoffs. We got some Mosley love in here. I do see comments saying, yes, it's not exactly accurate to say Mosley is at the top of the county. I know who we're talking about there. I know that it is Bozeman that we're referring to. And, I mean, they are undefeated. We have Mosley and we have Bozeman undefeated. The two will not play each other this year. So that kind of brings up some conversations that we've had in the past with baseball, where Mosley's having a great year, Bozeman's having a great year.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if you're not playing, it's kind of hard to rule the county champion. At the end of the year, you have a little more of a clear picture when you're like, okay, this team went undefeated against these opponents, this team went undefeated against these opponents, and kind of match them up with each other. But early on in the season, you can't really rule a county champion, especially if they don't play each other.
Yeah.
That is a fair point. Bozeman is undefeated right now, so we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Who is better than Mosley in Bay County? I'm sure that is the conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
Early to determine. Shipley Holmes County surprised me. We got a lot of comments in here. A lot of people loving some football. Don't count out Cottondale. That's right.
Yeah.
Cottondale, they put on a show tonight against Rocky Bayou. I know they had a tough draw to start the season, but they bounced back this week.
Yeah.
So we've gone through a lot of people in here, a lot of comments. We're about to get into that South Walton Port St. Joe game. I know Coach Tease is in here probably waiting to see some of that. I'll let you take this one away, because this is also another game that we saw as a potential game of the week matchup.
Yeah, I mean, we know with both of these teams, this is kind of one of those that we look at. That's going to be a good matchup, and obviously look at it. It was, the Seahawks on the road 1-1, and then Port St. Joe coming off the bye week last week, so an early bye week in their season. Both teams looked really good, well rested. Obviously, a little bit of a higher offensive battle. A lot of scores that we were trying to squeeze in here. But, I mean, Port St. Joe is one of those teams that we weren't sure what to expect out of necessarily. They lost another big senior class, talented senior class. But they look good. I mean, they look like they're filling the gaps, filling the holes. And, yeah, obviously it was a loss to South Walton. But like we were just talking about with BLOUNTSTOWN, I mean, playing a school in a higher classification and putting up a great fight against them. And we know South Walton's going to be a tough team this year as well. So I mean, this was a fun battle to watch, and I think Port St. Joe really played up to hang in there with a higher South Walton.
Right, and these two have played, this is the 11th or the 12th matchup that these guys have played in consecutive years, so clearly they're not, district rivals or anything at this point. They were when they started the rivalry. South Walton was a Class 1A team. It's all, of course, switched to 1R and Suburban and everything, and South Walton has moved up to what would be a Class 4A school when it comes to every other sport besides football. But yes, these two have played for the last decade, and it's gone back and forth for years and years and years. Port St. Joe still leads the series 7-4, but Coach Tisa and the gang, they've had St. Joe's number in recent years. I think that makes it 4 out of the last 6 or 4 out of the last 5 that South Walton have won, 4 out of the last 6. Yes, it's gone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But the last year was St. Joe, the year before was South Walton, the year before was St. Joe, so it's gone back and forth. Then South Walton looking to be the real deal potentially early on. They had a tough draw last week in Fort Walton Beach.
Yeah.
Which they are not a team that we technically cover. They're not one of our 21 teams. They are not in our coverage area, but they're a team that is much, much, much improved. I've heard a lot of the reporters over there on the West End and the Pensacola area saying, like, Fort Walton is the real deal. We were not at that game last week, so we didn't get to see exactly how it went down. We just got to see the score, and of course was a loss to South Walton, but a very, very improved Fort Walton Beach. So
we saw them again tonight against Rutherford too. We didn't see them, but we saw the score.
So I think, of course, both South Walton and Port St. Joe will likely both be in playoff contention in their own respective categories. It's still early. We got a lot to go on. But again, a big game, a fun game in Port St. Joe. Any other comments on that one before we move to the other games?
We have Coach Tisa in there. He said, always a crazy battle against the Tiger Sharks.
That is right. And it's always a fun one.
It is.
No matter what it is, last year, a 10-point game. This year, another one that's just 1-2 scores. It's always a fun game, no matter which side you're on. And normally high scoring the last 2 years, last year kind of down a little bit, but definitely a fun one. That one normally is a game of the week matchup, so that one almost got the fan pick as well. It was close. There was a lot
of big games in week 3.
So we're going to get into the Battle of the Bulldogs that I see a lot of people talking about in here. That is Freeport and Liberty County. That one, some people said the game of the night. We had a lot of ones that could have been going up for the game of the night.
Yeah.
The most competitive week that we've had so far. And this one, certainly a competitive battle. Freeport leading for much of the game, Liberty County taking it away at the very end. What did you think from this matchup over in Bristol?
I mean, this was one that both of these teams are looking for that win, fighting for it. Both, smaller schools. So I think it was an even matchup, and I think it was a great opportunity for both these teams to show off their strengths, learn from their weaknesses, fix any issues that they're going to have moving forward. So this was a good one to watch, looking at the highlights and listening through, hearing some of those names that we expected to be productive this season, starting to hear them, obviously, Cameron Fernandez, Rylan Roddenberry, those kinds of names, Julius Miles. So I think this was just an even matchup, and I think it was a great opportunity for these teams to play at a fair level.
Right, and these are two teams that certainly with an 0-2 start are going to be right on the fringe. Like I mentioned, a lot of teams make the playoffs in Class 1R, but these two are going to be fringe teams this year.
Yeah.
We'll certainly have to see it later on, so every win counts. And this one, a big one for Liberty County, getting things started. They've had a couple of tough draws early on in the season. Same with Freeport, a couple of tough draws. This one pretty evenly matched, and this one really could be a playoff decider, come week 8, week 9, week 10. This one really could make the difference. So a big win for Coach T and those guys in Bristol. Gonna head back to the comments because we still got a lot of people down here talking about football. We got a Let's Go Braves. Again, if you missed that, the Walton Braves winning in double overtime against Union County, who is a team that is likely a Final Four contender in Class 1R. They're similar to a Northview, a Hawthorne from last year, just an absolute powerhouse in Class 1R. Walton winning this one in double overtime. So clearly, again, you can talk about the classifications in Union County, like, oh, they're a smaller school. That is probably a Final Four, at least, region final level team in Union County playing against a Walton. So definitely a tough battle. I wish that we could have been there. I wish that we had one more person out there shooting at 8 games. 7 is a lot. 8 would be a ton.
Yeah.
But we definitely got to get Walton covered, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
In the next couple of weeks. We're going to check again. We got a couple people talking about Bozeman and a lot of people talking about classifications and who plays what. We got, what class is Destin in? Destin, as far as I know, is still not classified. Last year was their first season as a program, and they were, if you look on Max Preps, it says freelance. There's a couple teams like that, a couple Christian schools, a couple teams that are still kind of getting in. Haven't really been classified because the school is jumping between, a small amount and could grow to be, when they get classified, could immediately go in as a class for a school.
They're still freelance.
Freelance is what they currently are. So they're not in a classification. I don't know how that plays out when it comes down to them. They're 3-0 right now, so potentially coming to playoff consideration. So we'll have to see how that plays out later in the season. I would think that they would most likely get locked in with a, I'm not even going to say because I really don't know. I'll have to check on that. That is a great question.
And we'll see them again, Bozeman in October. Then they go to Chipley the following week, or they host Chipley the following week, and then they round out the season with Holmes County. So we'll see them a couple more times this season too as
Coach
they fare.
Tiza, he answered my question in there. We got Destin still independent. They would be Class 1 suburban. So that's what they would be put in as, is Class 1 suburban. So yes, that we don't have any of our local teams are not Class 1 suburban, but that is what Destin would be. Yes, I got some people still arguing about Bozeman and Mosley. I'm sure that'll continue on through the rest of the season if both of them stay undefeated. The Braves main event, best game of the year, double overtime in Defuniak Springs. I wish that we could have been there. That would have been so much fun to witness. Again, we normally only stay for like the first half of the game, highlights wise, because we got to get back, put it all on the show. We wouldn't have gotten to finish anyway, but still would have been fun to have some highlights. We do have one more game that we have highlights of, and I know there's
we have 2 more.
We have 2 more games that we have highlights of.
You're used to 6 games.
2 more games. I am used to 6 games. We're going to get into the Destin and North Bay Haven game. Tell me what you thought of this one, because North Bay Haven obviously fall into a little slump after that week.
Yeah. And I think that's so hard to see, and because there's so much excitement around this team, and I bought into it. I've been excited for it. And, Coach Canales talked about our offensive scheme is going to be harder. Our plays are going to be trickier, and it might not look good in the first, second, or third week, but they looked good. I mean, yes, you have to pay attention to their opponent, but in that first week, there was just so much excitement and the capabilities. And then, now just going on a 2-game losing streak. Heartbreaking to see, especially in they're at home for this game. It's the 100th game of the school history. So much excitement around it. And just to kind of really fall off. I mean, reading through the highlights, it was just turnover, interception, this. And so it's so hard to hear that and see that. I know there's a lot of potential out of this team. So I know there's work to be done, and great things can happen, but it's sad to see. There's so many athletes on this team. Another team with a bunch of great athletes, talented players, and execution just doesn't happen all the time. So hopefully they can start to click, make it work, because this is going to be an exciting team to watch if they can have plays like this, if they can do what they're capable of.
Right, and that district is one that could be somewhat competitive this year. Obviously, if I had to pick a front runner, I'd obviously probably have to go with South Walton right now.
Yeah.
Bay, of course, they had an incredible senior class last year.
Yeah.
That's not the same team. They're very young, but they can still play ball. North Bay Haven, I think they match up well with a Bay. I think that one could be competitive. I think Rutherford, I think all 3 of those could be competitive. South Walton, I think any of those teams could get anyone a run for their money. Right now, I'd have to say South Walton's in the driver's seat, but we'll have to see when they actually get into those district play games. Got a couple of Buccaneers comments in there. I know, yes, they have a very talented team. I think their schedule is favorable that they could win a few more games before the midway point of the season. These two, of course, a much improved Holmes County and a much improved Destin. They hit a nice little roadblock. But yes, a tough loss for North Bay Haven tonight. Destin Sharks 3-0. Now we're going to check a team that a lot of people are down there talking about. That is your 3-0 Bozeman Bucks. They won 33-7 over Baker tonight. Started off with, Bozeman coming in. We got Peyton Gay to his brother Hayden. They called a defensive pass interference here. Don't be fooled by the flag. That was a touchdown. And then this play, I know, Baker's not our team, but look at this play. Keeping his knee off the ground. I pulled it into slow motion. I looked at it. It's very, very close. His knee was not on the ground. I pulled it on the editor. I looked at it close. From what I saw, his knee was not on the ground. Not that that matters because they lost. But Bozeman, he was, feeding Chance Jenkins and Colton McClellan all over the field. Bozeman winning this one big. Peyton Gay is back. He looks every bit healthy coming off that knee injury. And this team is a high firepower offense. Again,
Beautiful.
We can equate Mosley and we can equate Bozeman. We can do it all day long. They don't play, so we'll never know this season. They're two very talented teams. But again, Bozeman picking up a big win tonight. What do you think of this one?
Well, I just like piggybacking off of that. I just don't think you can necessarily compare these teams, Mosley and Bozeman hand in hand. They're very different teams. They play at different levels. So I think that's just a conversation and I don't know. But yeah, I think Bozeman looked good again. This is another team with some top players. It's great to see Peyton Gay back. Obviously, the connection with his brother. We love those family bond ones. But, I mean, this team has some depth, and you see it throughout the game. I mean, you hear a different name on every play. It's not like some of those teams where you have that one guy who's really going to lead the charge. You have a different player. So it's great to see, especially in, the smaller schools, to have just so many different players that you can rely on. So good to see Bozeman pick up a win tonight. Obviously been home the last couple weeks, facing some different opponents. Obviously we know Baker this week, but I think they're definitely going to be someone we're going to see it towards the end of the season, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how they fare out in the rest of their schedule. Right,
and I do think Bozeman's schedule is favorable for a potential 6-0, 7-0 potential start. We have to look at that schedule further down the road. But I was answering an email this past weekend about Bozeman, and I was looking at their schedule, and I was like, I really think that Bozeman has the chance to go to 7-0 before matching up with a Chipley. And as we saw, Holmes County, beating Chipley tonight, they're not invincible. So Bozeman could tie their best start in school history at 8-0. They could pass that. Potentially, I'm getting way ahead. We'll have to look at the schedule, see what happens. Of course, you can have a bad night. But I do think that Bozeman's schedule is favorable for a huge start. I do see some comments. Sam, what was Jason Patterson's number against Graceville? I don't know Patterson's numbers tonight. Again, like I said, assuming, we never want to go off of what Sam says with assuming, but assuming he didn't play a whole lot, the last year against Graceville. Graceville's still a young team that Sneeds certainly has the advantage over. That one a 32-6 final score. I'm just going to assume that he didn't, go out and put up a 400, 500 number game there, but I'll have to check.
Especially with Holmes County next week as well.
Right. And the last bit of that comment was, did Tab break the record tonight? That would be referring to Cole Tab at Choctaw. We're following Seth Stringer over there on the west end, and he was following that game where Cole Tab was putting up some crazy numbers tonight, like 350 yards in the first half, chasing those touchdowns. He did not, so it looks like he kind of sat out the second half. He had 365 yards and 4 touchdowns, so it looks like he didn't play as much in the second half, clearly didn't put up the numbers the first half, so did not get close to Jason Patterson's 500 record or Caleb Wagner's total state record of 535 or Derrick Henry's second place record of 502. So that I got locked in. So let's check in. We got Walton versus South Walton main event next week. Is that next week or the 22nd. Week after? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, South Walton plays Arnold next week. So Walton versus South Walton is in 2 weeks. I would say there's a good chance that that's the game of the week, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. This is where we're going to turn into those next week games. Kaleigh,
the 22nd.
What games do we got next week, and which ones are you looking forward to the most?
We have a Thursday night matchup. Those are always fun. Is that at Leon? Okay.
Yes, because they played at Tommy Oliver last year.
Okay, so Thursday night battle with Mosley. They have a lot of Thursday night matchups this week. We have North Bay Haven, Jefferson County, Liberty County, Franklin County. That's always a good one. South Walton, Arnold.
We got Pensacola. They're going to be at Bay. Chipley versus Vernon, a Washington County battle. Cottondale versus Freeport. Then we got Sneads at Holmes County, which right now looks like the game of the week.
Yeah.
We'll see. What else we got?
Rutherford, Marianna. That should be a good one, too. You know, Rutherford looking to really set themselves up this year. And, I mean, like I said, I'm on that Marianna train. I'm so excited for anything and everything that they do this season. Dixie County versus Weewa, and Port St. Joe and Pike Liberal Arts. That's when we see throughout a couple of our team's seasons.
Right. So really, if we're looking at it from a total perspective, there's not really a lot of games that kind of jump off the board. Like, gotta be at that one. That one's gotta be game of the week, except Holmes County and Sneads, where we got an undefeated 2-0 Sneads. They didn't play in week 2, so they're only 2-0 versus a now 2-1 Holmes County.
Yeah.
Holmes County's riding high off that win against Chipley. Chipley went the whole regular season last year undefeated. They beat Holmes County 7 times coming into tonight, so a huge, huge win for Holmes County. Got an undefeated Sneads coming in. That one seems to be pretty clear on that one. I don't think we need, as Mr. Brock says, a vote on that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and even just kind of historically, that's always a good battle to see. And, you know, it's at Holmes County this year. It's in Bonifay. We know 2 years ago when they played, that's when Jason Patterson hit that injury. So obviously it means a little bit more for, I think, both teams. And I know Sneads, Jason Patterson, that's a game he'll want to prove. And I think that's going to be a great matchup next week. Looking at it kind of stands out.
You guys can put it on me if you want. I'm going to call it game of the week. It is on me if it ends up not being a close game, but that will be our game of the week. That's going to do it for us tonight. If you want to watch all these highlights again, go ahead and head on over to mypanhandle.com. Click on the sports tab, Friday Night Fever. You will find everything there. You, of course, can rewatch this, share this, send it all around. We're going to be here again next week, as we will the rest of the season. It has been a fun week 3, my favorite week so far of the season for sure. Again, that will do it for us. We will see you next week.